Well, that should be good.
Right.
Weeks.
Okay, well, as a couple more people funnel in, we'll just still go ahead and get started because it's not necessarily all super crucial that they hear everything. So I'm excited to have you guys be here. I love ninja selling and I love what it teaches. Written by a real estate agent for real estate agents, but the principles that it teaches just apply to any sales position. And so I love it. I've kind of just built my business around it and have loved a lot of the principles that it teaches. So before I start getting ahead of myself and moving through, if everyone could just go around and introduce themselves just so we know who everyone is. So Parker, you want to start us off?
Yep. So my name's Parker. Just with Mountain Up Real Estate, been an agent for about a year and a half now. Oh, yeah. Never read the book, so I'm excited to.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, I know it's read the book as well. So never read the book.
And my name's Dallin Anderson. I'm with Equity Real Estate. Also have my license for about a year and a half. I haven't done too much with it. I've been doing mostly land development lately. But want to get back into it. And I have not read the book either.
Cool. Sweet. Good.
I'm Chase Hasley with Coldwell Banker. I'm gonna make it a even 3 and say I've only had my license for a year and a half as well.
Okay, cool.
I own the book, but haven't read it yet.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's awesome.
You will need to after this, right?
I don't know about that. Well, cool. Awesome.
Well, y'all need to come work with me. I'm Annette Judd. I come in and brokerage. It's called the Utah Experience. I read the book. I listened to the audiobook. I've been to the installation. By Cole and I like ninja.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's amazing.
Yeah. And that's awesome.
And it's very simple.
Yes. And that knows this stuff. And that's why that's mainly why I decided to that, you know, I want to talk with you about these things, just as having it be a collaboration period and hear different perspectives, learn from you as well. Because by doing this is by no means am I saying that I feel that I am an expert in this or know all of this. Unfortunately, for the first little bit, I have to talk at you a little bit as I just kind of try and blast through these things just to try and get us all on the same page, get some of those principles flowing and ideas flowing. And then that way we'll be able to kind of just talk through them and have a discussion after. And I believe that's where the true benefit will come for everyone's business, collectively and individually. So hopefully that can be helpful. And I'll try to do it quickly. That's why I have my notes. Hopefully you're okay with that, because I feel like if I don't have my notes, then I might ramble a little bit and it'll take longer. And we don't want that. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. I'll do a little background on this as well. And honestly, at any point, like this isn't formal or have any guidelines or that it needs to be an exact way. So if you have comments, just pipe up and interrupt me and we can talk about things in the middle of it. It's not good to wait till the very end. So a little bit of backstory for you here. It's actually this back page. I'm sorry. So that's Larry Kendall. But Ninja was written, like I said, by a real estate agent for real estate agents. If you end up reading the book, there are a lot of references and scenarios that are directly related to the job of real estate agent, which is great because it's really actionable and gives you things that you can actually do. With that being said, I try and be very careful at towing the line of not making this sound like I'm teaching you how to do your job, because that's not what I'm doing and I don't know how to do your job. So again, it's just the principles that I feel are the very most important from it. So some of the principles are pretty broad, but you guys as the professionals know how to apply it to your business. Okay, so a little bit of background for you. The author of the book is Larry Kendall, like I kind of mentioned, holds an MBA from Kansas State University and is one of the founding partners of the Group Incorporated, a highly successful real estate company based in Northern Colorado. The concept of the book was inspired by a top performing agent at their brokerage nicknamed the Ninja. So that's kind of where it came from. Larry began documenting the systems used by this agent and others, which led to the creation of Ninja Selling in 1994. So that's kind of how it came about, just so we have an idea of how it came to be. The Ninja Selling system has been adopted by over 100,000 professionals. And Larry has taught real estate at Colorado University and was named the 2006 Colorado Realtor of the Year. So that's just a little background. Now moving on to the 4 key principles. So this is kind of where I was like, man, I love this book. I want to share it. I love the principles in it, but how can I possibly, break this down without it being super overwhelming or super boring? Because I also have a tendency to be boring. So I thought, okay, let's just break down the 4 main principles, which are personal mastery, stop selling, start solving, ninja business strategy, and connect and communicate. So there are lots of chapters within these principles. There's 42 chapters in the book. We'll touch on 10 of them. So that's what we'll do. Okay, let me look at this here really quick. The first one, obviously, personal mastery. So just one chapter on this, chapter 6, is what you focus on grows. And it talks a lot about something called your RAS, or Reticular Activating System. So what better way to teach you about that than with a poorly edited video that has some questionable overlays and B-roll. But anyways, it will tell you what the RAS is, so you don't have to listen to me tell you what the RAS is. So let me get this pulled up for us really quick. This is basically, again, kind of along the idea of what you focus on grows. There's this part of our brain that helps us to focus on things, retain information, and then see those things in the world. And that directly relates to positive affirmations, the importance of having written goals and plans, and focusing on what we want over what we fear. So let me pull this over. The graphic at the beginning, again, is a bit questionable. It's a little weird looking, but. So this is your RAS.
The reticular activating system helps with this task. 1. It's a powerful filter. Anatomically, the reticular activating system is a bundle of nerves at the brainstem that filters out unnecessary data so we can focus on the important stuff. This system facilitates the functioning of attention and sensation. This net-like bundle of neurons goes through the hindbrain, midbrain, and a small part of the forebrain called the hypothalamus. It is about the size of a little finger. The primary function of this system is to alarm the higher brain centers when some important news arrives and to filter out unnecessary incoming messages. If this system gets destroyed, an enduring and profound coma results, and for all practical purposes, the existence of a living being is reduced to a sleeping vegetable. Anesthetic drugs that produce unconsciousness have been designed to act by depressing this particular system. Number 2. Helps with learning. The reticular activating system is the major reason that you learn a new word and start to hear it everywhere. This is the reason we can try to ignore a crowd full of talking people, yet it suddenly snaps to our attention when someone says our name, or at least something that sounds familiar. Actually, this system knows what you focus on and creates a filter for it. It then goes through the data and only presents the information which is important to us. Of course, all of this takes place without you noticing anything. It has been programmed in a way to work in our favor without us doing anything. This is pretty awesome. Number 3, belief. Similarly, the reticular activating system looks for the information that attests to your beliefs. It filters your surrounding world with the help of parameters that you give it, and your beliefs shape those parameters. For instance, if you keep thinking you're bad at giving speeches, you likely will be. If you believe that you can work efficiently, you are most likely to do so. This system filters out what you want to see. In this way, it influences your actions. Number 4, positive thinking. It has been suggested that you can train your reticular activating system by taking your subconscious thoughts and marrying them into your conscious thoughts. This is called setting your intent. Basically, it means that if you put your focus on your goals, then the reticular activating system will reveal the information, the opportunities, and the people in helping you achieve it. For example, if you direct your mind towards positive thought, you will become more aware of positivity and seek it. If you really want a pet turtle and strongly aim for it, you will come across information to help you with it. If you look at it this way, the law of attraction doesn't sound so magical. Focus on the negative stuff, and you're likely to invite negativity into your life. Focus on the positive stuff and watch how your life gets filled with positivity because your brain is seeking it out. This is not some magic. It is your reticular activating system influencing the world and the way you see it. Number 5, easily train your brain. Of course, in reality, these goals aren't as easy as they sound. However, it is possible to train your reticular activating system in helping you reach your desired destination. It is all about visualizing your goals and letting your conscious and subconscious thoughts work together to let this happen. You might be wondering if you could hear your name in a crowd of thousands of people. Can you train your reticular activating system to focus on things that matter? The simple answer to this is you certainly can. A good way to start training your reticular system is by keeping a list of your goals wherever you go and reread it often. It is a good way to remind and refocus your brain on what matters and what doesn't. We're only a few weeks into our New Year's resolutions, and most of us have already started to quit on our goals. If you really want to achieve those goals, set your intent and refocus, as a reticular activating system might help us out. It is a good way to train your brain into seeking out the best interests. This system is continuously working and filtering out billions of bits of data to help you see and hear what you want to be. This really sounds like a superpower.
This is the
And
question of
that is the end of our list of the facts about the reticular activating system. Let us know in the comment section below.
Okay, so that's just kind of to give you an idea of what the RAS is and how it can help us develop personal mastery. And the book actually really gets into how you can program that part of your brain. That may not resonate with everyone, right? That part resonates with me, the scientific part behind it, actually doing things like positive affirmations, goal setting, to help train your brain to look for those things, so that instead of, being out in business acting like a victim, you can act more like a player, because you've just programmed your mind to think that way. So again, that's something that is explained further in the book, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how you can use your RAS as a superpower, like it said. Positive affirmations is really big, because what we tell ourselves dictates how we act, whether we know it or not. And I already said, it will walk you through, the book will walk you through how to do it. But as far as the importance of written goals and plans, it mentions having written goals and plans in the video. And this is what the book actually says from it. So this is a quote from the book. Do we focus on what we fear or what we want? The quality of my life will be determined in large part by the amount of time I spend on the positive pathway of my RAS. Being able to recognize I am going down the negative pathway, arresting those thoughts, changing them, and heading down the positive path is a very important skill for me to develop. The player lives on the positive path. Victims tend to spend most of their lives focusing on what they don't want, and as a result, manifesting more of what they don't want in a negative feedback loop. Your positive, measurable goals will help you stay on the positive RAS pathway. Unfortunately, most people have not taken the time to write down positive, measurable goals, and as a result, they can't tell you what they want. Instead, they tell you what they don't want. So that's just a little bit about that. And that's the only part that we'll cover on the personal mastery part. Again, I honestly feel that is a personal thing as well, personal mastery. So it's probably something that takes a little bit more time in private to come to terms with and get good at. So principle number 2 is stop selling and start solving. So we'll hit on chapter 14, 15, 16, and 18. So chapter 14 is creating value. And then if you'll excuse me, this is where I'm going to try and just get through things quickly to get you the information so that we can get to our discussion. But first, I want everyone to just, I know it's kind of a silly exercise, but just exhale for as long as you can. Like you are blowing on a hot bowl of soup or a candle. Just exhale as long as you can. Okay, what did you all naturally do after that? A deep breath in, right? So that, I just use that to demonstrate the law of giving, that when you give, naturally you have to receive. And that's a principle that kind of fits with the stop selling, start solving portion of things. Some of you may know Alex Hormozi. He built and sold multiple businesses. He has an investment company, a large following on social media. He teaches that if all you do is give value, give information, give encouragement, give ideas, that you never need to work another day in your life because you would receive so much in return because of that law of giving it and then receiving value in return. You also might know, put this in the Facebook group a little bit, may have mentioned it to a couple of you, but Brayton Shaw, he's a loan officer in Idaho. He's got like 1.3 million followers on Instagram. He's awesome at what he does, obviously. But like 2 months ago, I was on a Zoom call with him and a bunch of other loan officers just learning how to use our social media to generate business and just learning the way that he kind of improved his business on social media. But the main thing that he pointed out to us was that people don't want to be sold on social media. They get on social media to be educated or to be entertained. And he said, if you can do those two things without creating the perception that you want something in return, then naturally things are going to flow your way. And so I thought that was interesting to kind of draw the connection between what Ninja teaches and then what these two figures that I'm familiar with have taught. So kind of all along the same lines and the same principle. So chapter 15, asking the right questions. Chapter 15 and 16 kind of blend into each other on the topic of questions, but asking the right questions is all about pain and pleasure. Pain and pleasure are what are the feelings that move human beings to make decisions. So if you can figure out what the pain and pleasure points are of your clients, then you can better serve them. Ninjas use the Socratic method. Remember, Socrates was a Greek philosopher and teacher, and this I'm pulling this directly from Ninja. And his method of teaching was to ask great questions and listen. He did this for two reasons. One, asking questions keeps the student, or in this case, a client, engaged and connected. And two, the answers lie within the student, the client. They know what they want, but they might not always be able to articulate what they want. So then it's our job to be able to ask questions that help them come to that realization on their own, which is a big deal for a lot of people. I should say for everyone. So that's just a little bit on that. Like I said, it bleeds into chapter 16, which is the Ford questions. I know Annette could tell us what these are, but Ford is family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Has nothing to do with Ford Motor Company, even though Ford School. I know Parker takes Ford School. So these questions are what Ninja recommends you use to connect with people. Which, to kind of just sidetrack here for a second, that's something that's a big deal for me, because I thought that maybe one of my weak points was connecting with people. So using the Ford questions has really helped me to be able to get to know someone. And it works. It really does. It's not that hard to ask people about their family, about what they're doing for work, about what they like to do for fun, or what big plans they have for the summer. And it really helps to get to know someone. So I've really liked the Ford questions. But to paint kind of a picture for you of how you can use it in a work setting and how you can use it in just a more casual conversation setting, I'll just give you these kind of two scenarios. So in a work setting, obviously I can ask the Ford questions to one of my clients. Obviously, occupation is an important one for me to understand and see what's going on there. So that's a given, but the other ones aren't quite as obvious. So there was an occasion when I asked about a family situation. So I asked my clients just about their family situation, and I learned that they had a disabled child, and that they were basing much of their home buying and moving experience off of how their disabled child felt about that. And so that was a big point for them. So not only was that was helpful for me for two reasons. One, I was able to know if there were any assistance programs that were out there for them, which there are. And two, I was basically just able to put myself in a situation where I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't wondering what they were doing. Why aren't you moving things along quicker? Because I knew and I understood. So there was no reason to have any pressure there or anything like that. Another one, I had some clients who were really close to being able to qualify, and they had a camper, a snowmobile, a dirt bike, four-wheelers, side-by, just all these toys. And I'm just like, man, if you just sell a couple of these, you can bring your DTI down and you can accomplish this goal of getting into a home. And so instead of just jumping into that and saying, hey, get rid of some of this stuff, I just started to ask, like, well, tell me about recreation. Like, tell me about your toys. Why do you like these so much? And they started to tell me how it was a big part of their personality, how they connected with family and friends, what they spent a lot of their time doing. And I come to find out that they're like, we don't want to buy a home unless we can afford the home and keep all the toys at the same time. So again, I was like, okay, this is good because now I don't feel the pressure to force the issue. I can just say, okay, well, great. Now I know what your goal is and what's important to you. We're not gonna dig into this anymore, but here's your options. Here's the path moving forward. And I believe doing it that way helps them to know that they can come back to me when they are ready. Because if I push and say, just sell the dang thing and then you can get into the home, they'd be like, well, it's not what we care about most. So anyways, asking those 4 questions in that setting is a big deal. As applied to like just a general conversational setting, like if you were talking to someone, you saw someone at the grocery store that you knew, whatever. The book actually gives kind of a story. I'll just summarize it here really quick, but basically Larry Kendall was talking to one of the agents at the brokerage, and he said that he was having a hard time struggling with work-life balance, which is probably something that all of us to some degree or another felt, right? When we're working, we feel like we're not spending enough time with our family. When we're with our family, we feel like we're not working enough, right? So we can all relate to that. Larry advised this agent to ask the forward questions when he went to his kids' soccer games, because he was spending a lot of time at his kids' soccer games. And normally what he would do was just pull up a chair and sit on the sideline. And he said, well, instead, just go around and talk to everyone. And he's like, the one thing I want you to not ask people is, do you know anyone who wants to buy or sell a home? He's like, do not ask that question. They will see you as a pursuing salesman. Do not do it. He said, ask the forward questions. Those questions will reveal their pain and pleasure points in their life, and those things dictate their real estate decisions. And then things flow a little bit more naturally there. So that's kind of how the book relates it. So chapter 18, what will people pay for? Ninja teaches that people are willing to pay money for 2 things: to solve a problem, pain relief, and then to feel good, pleasure. So the 2 things that we kind of already talked about. So a survey of the way Americans make buying decisions shows that there are 3 groups of buyers. Again, this is all from Ninja. This is not Cole doing his own research. 15% of people always want to pay the lowest price. 5% always want to pay, or sorry, I said 15% want to pay the lowest price, 5% want to pay the highest price, and 80% always want the best value. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm in that 80%. I usually just want the best value, and we all just use different comparisons and techniques to decide what gives something value. So to kind of personalize this and relate it to something that I think we've all done, which is shopping on Amazon, we all know there are thousands and thousands of products on there, right? And if I get on there and search up a case for an iPhone 15 Max Pro or whatever that is, I'm probably going to get 50 different options that pop up. So if I were to narrow it down to just 2 choices, one is super cheap and has good reviews and good pictures depicting the case. And then let's say the other one has good reviews too and good pictures, but it's $10 more. You're probably just going to go with the cheaper one because it's offering the same result for a cheaper price. So it has better value, right? I think that's something that we all are aware of. So let's pretend that the sellers of the more expensive case are confused because they know they make a superior product. So maybe they're using different materials, or maybe their manufacturing is better, or maybe they just truly believe that their product is better and they can't figure out why this other one's selling more than theirs. So let's say that they get on Amazon, they improve the pictures, they maybe even add a video. Sometimes when they have like a video of the product, you can watch it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But maybe they'll offer a warranty on the case, throw in a screen protector as a bonus or something like that. So then the question is, if it's important to you to protect your phone, which case are you going to buy now? If all that information is out there, you're going to buy the one that's slightly more expensive because you can see that there's more value there. So you're okay paying the higher price. For us, and I say us because it absolutely applies to me as well, if our clients can't see the added value that we bring, they'll just automatically default to something cheaper or a different product. Just what they'll do is just natural. It's just human nature to do that, or at least we've been kind of conditioned to do that. So anyways, hopefully that gives you a good idea of what people will pay for and how to kind of set yourself apart when doing that. And again, you can kind of see that these are broad. I'm not getting into like the specifics of what you do. That's up to you guys, but I believe the principle is still true. Okay, so chapter 23, 24, 30, and 31. So we kind of skip around a little on the Ninja business strategy, but this has a lot of good stuff in it. So the power of flow. Ninja selling defines flow as frequency of interaction. So this can be mail, email, text message, social media, phone call, face-to-face interaction. The rule is that you need to be adding value with each interaction. If it doesn't add value, don't do it. Take time to be creative and come up with things that actually add value. So this is what I always have to tell myself. If I ever feel weird reaching out to someone, then I need to reevaluate why I'm reaching out and what value I'm bringing. Because if I feel weird, I'm probably not bringing very much value. Because when I bring something of value, I feel much more confident and have no problem. Another problem that kind of comes with flow is that as salespeople, we think that our past clients are our property, so to speak, and that they will come back to us for future transactions and refer business to us. And Ninja says that that is not the case. I'm going to simplify some of the numbers that Ninja puts out. But according to NAR, most Americans know an average of 12 realtors. When home sellers were asked if they would use their agent for their next transaction or refer their agent to a friend, 74% said they definitely would, and 15% said they probably would. That's 89% combined. But on those people's next real estate transaction, only 29% ended up using the same agent. It's even more shocking for buyers. After buying a home with their agent, 75% said they would definitely use them again or refer them to a friend. And 15% said they would probably use them again or refer them to a friend. So that's, we're talking 90% of people like you did a good job. Like people are pleased with the results. But buyers, only 13% of them ended up using the same agent on the next transaction, which is just mind blowing. And I kind of apply that to my business as well and how this principle of flow applies to me because it totally does. And so the question is, what's the problem? It's nothing new to you guys, but people usually aren't having a real estate transaction all the time. So even though they had a good experience with you 6 years ago, they're more likely to go with one of the other 11 agents that they know that they are more in flow with, unless you do a good job staying in touch with them. That's just the principle that it teaches. This was actually even hard for me to overcome. I think it takes a little bit of humility. I kind of had to humble myself a little bit because I was in the boat of like, well, if I work for someone, then I'm going to do such an awesome job and then they're going to work with me forever. And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way. So get over yourself and realize you have to do these things to stay in contact with people because this is what the numbers show and what the business shows. So quick story from the book highlights the power of flow. Larry Kendall had Lee Cockrell speaking at one of their events. Lee was the former vice president of Disney. And he said that as Lee was speaking at their event, he said that his wife, he and his wife bought and sold 11 homes in their lifetime, and not a single agent stayed in contact with them after. And Lee said that he was constantly hiring other executives for Disney who were buying multi-million-dollar homes, and that if any of his agents had stayed connected to him, he could have made their entire career referring those people to them. I just think that is crazy. Like I just don't know how that happens. But it's probably the same reason that, for what I was thinking, that those agents probably thought, well, if I'm so awesome to work with Lee, the vice president of Disney, then he's definitely going to come back to me, and then just fell into the same trap that I've fallen into before. So anyways, just a thought. Okay, so chapter 24, you're either visible or invisible. So Ninja talks about 2 types of flow to stay connected with your database. 1 is auto flow and 2 is live flow. Auto flow is your 3 per month. So these are your connections, your hits, whatever you want to call it, with your people. So Ninja recommends that top producers have a minimum of 3 auto flow touches per month. Ninja recommends a combination of mail and email that you set up over the course of a year so that you set it and forget it and don't have to fiddle with it each month. Also, I'm gonna pause really quick because I realized I didn't mention this at the beginning. If you have any like things that spark in your mind or that we touch on that you want to talk about, just write them down and we'll talk about those in the discussion. So sorry that I brought that up late, but then you have the second one, which is your live flow. This is your magic 50 is what they call it. So in addition to the auto flow, Ninja recommends 50 live interactions per week, face-to-face or on the phone. And I know this sounds crazy because I thought it sounded crazy. I read it and I was like, there's no way this is possible. But they say that these live flow interactions, any interaction counts as long as you ask one of the 4 questions and uncover one of those pain or pleasure points. That counts. So if you go to church and talk to 6 people, if you talk with 4 buyers that week and then 2 sellers, you hang out with a group of 5 friends on the weekend, you call 5 old friends, you go to your kid's soccer game and talk to 10 people, just like the guy did when Larry recommended to do that. So then you start to realize, okay, this is actually a little bit more doable than I thought. And so it is doable. Chapter 30 is building your database. Ninja describes your database as your business's most valuable asset. A survey of 20,000 realtors showed that around 40%, now this is a crazy statistic, showed that around 40% of agents had some semblance of a database. Even scraps of paper and business cards in a shoebox counted. So we're not talking high standards here. They're like, do you have anything to show you have database? So 60% had no database at all. The 40% of agents that at least had something earned 251% more than those who had no database. Again, I think that just highlights the importance of being able to keep track of things and actually have stuff in front of you that you can refer to. And again, maybe even you fall into the trap of thinking like, oh, well, I got a steel trap. I don't need to write things down. I don't need to take notes. You'll forget. You will. No matter how like poignant you thought that conversation was with that person, you'll forget it at some point. I'm sure everyone's kind of had an experience with that. But Ninja describes doing business without a database as doing business on accident. If you have not built a database, they recommend 2 things: intention and patience. For intention, you need to set up a time to build the foundation of your database. So add everyone in that you already know. And you might need to invest in one of these if you don't have access to one already, or honestly, if it's like such a weak point for you, that's okay. Invest the money in hiring someone to help you. For patience, Ninja encourages you to understand that it can take time to build a database. You may be able to add 100 people right off the bat, but your database should be growing constantly. They recommend 2 to 3 new households added to your database each week. And that's 100 to 150 households a year, which is a big deal because of this next part, which again, I thought was crazy. Ninja Selling also has the philosophy that for every household in your database, there's $1,000 worth of transactions a year in there. Just crazy. So 150 households in a database would mean 150,000. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to transact. One person could buy or sell, buy, and buy an investment property. That's 3 transactions, right? And that adds up to X amount in dollars, right? You guys can do the math on that. But it's up to us to stay in flow with our database to give ourselves the opportunity to be part of those transactions. Because again, it goes back to that whole thing about being prideful and thinking they're going to come back to me. They won't. You're not as cool as you think you are, or at least I'm not. And you'll miss out on people. So this is the approach that Larry takes. So you could take the approach of just getting contact information, sticking them on your auto flow, like your mailers or your emails and stuff like that. And that's not a bad approach, but Larry took a more personal and incremental approach. Instead, he would get acquainted with someone and ask them the 4 questions. Then once the person realized that they had been talking for a little while, they usually reciprocate and ask the other person those types of questions, right? Again, we've all experienced that when talking with someone. People are nice, like to interact with one another and get to know each other. So then eventually at some point, the person would get curious and ask him what he did for work. From there, that once he told him what he did for work, the person would ask like, well, how's the market? And Larry, being a ninja, wouldn't just blurt out some quick answer. He would just ask more questions. So he would say, what part of the market are you interested in? Residential, commercial, new construction, investment, or a particular neighborhood? And then once he learned more about what they were interested in, he would ask them if they would like to receive more info on that. So then they kind of know like, okay, why am I getting this now from you? Well, because we had this conversation and I actually asked for it. And then those 3 touches per month that you have set on auto that you don't have to think about, whether you're on vacation, you're sick, you're busy or whatever, is still hitting them. So really important point. I love that. Chapter 31 is formatting your database and formatting and using your database. So to format it, and I'm not going to read too much on this just because it's probably pretty obvious. You can look it up. It's in the book. Gathering contact information, names, birthdays, emails, anniversaries, addresses, what they do for work, how long they've been at work, what they do for work, all sorts of stuff like that is helpful to include in your database. Then they encourage you to categorize using an ABCD method. So A's are people who are your advocates. They send referrals. They're your raving fans. You want to spend money staying in front of those people. So if that means sending them extra mailers or, and I say mailers, I'm like not saying that's the only thing. There are lots of different things you can do, but I'm just saying those are the people that you want to pay extra attention to stay in front of. If they're a B, they're a fan of you. They will refer people to you, but they won't go out of their way to do it on their own. I have to ask. C, these people still know, like, and trust you and are willing to do business with you, but for whatever reason, they don't send referrals or seem willing to make that connection with a potential referral. This will be most of your database is what they say. And they caution that these are the ones that are extremely susceptible to getting in flow with one of those other 11 real estate agents that they statistically probably know, unless you stay in flow with them. So, and then D, they are people you want to meet and develop a relationship with. So breaking it down in that category can help you keep it organized and keep things moving along. Okay, last bit here. Sorry, I hate talking at you. I don't hate you. I just hate talking. Okay, so principle number 4 is connect and communicate. And the one chapter we're going to hit on is chapter 37, the Ninja Consultation. The reason why I'm only going to hit on one again is because this chapter has a lot of stories and examples that are going to be much better if you read it on your own than if I try and tell it to you. So the traditional 3-step sales presentation is connection, presentation, features and benefits, which actually when you start to learn about stuff in sales, that's actually not that big of a deal. It's what you talk about if you don't know what you're talking about. And then step 3 is the close. And then the Ninja Consultation 4-step process is connection is the same, but then you have information, pain and pleasure, which we've talked about. Step 3 is solution, create potential solutions. And then step 4 is the proposal where the client makes the decision. So to summarize these without going into all of the stories that they talk about, connection, you have 2 goals. Step 1 is to connect with, or in step 1, 2 goals in step 1. Did I confuse you enough there? 2 goals in step 1 of connecting. You want to connect and take control of the process. So people want to work with someone they like and trust. In the first 2 minutes of meeting with someone, they'll decide if they like or trust you. Is that true? I don't know. That's what Ninja says. That's what I have written down right here. Give them time of possession in the conversation and even ask some board questions, and this will help you to connect with someone. Then to take control of the process, you can say something along the lines of, if it's all right with you, I'd like to ask you some questions that will better help me understand your financial situation and make sure that you're not missing anything. Or at least that's what I'm going to say to someone, right? What you're going to say is going to be different according to how you like to phrase it. But the reason Ninja suggests that we do this is it helps our clients understand that we as the professional are in charge of the process. They as the client are in charge of making the decision. And it really helps create that distinction, because when we start to make decisions for our clients, that puts us in a bad spot. It sounds like I think a lot of times people think like I'm going to be the hero and take on all the problems and all the decision making, and that's going to make my client feel really good. But by taking the monkey and putting it on our back, we now put ourselves on the hook, and it's really not our decision to make. So although it sounds kind of weird, you take the monkey, put it on their back, you provide them with information and educate them, and then let them make the decision. So that's been an important thing for me to learn that I've really liked. Okay, so for information, which is step 2, pain and pleasure. In the traditional 3-step sales approach, at this point, you're normally going into a presentation, which is where you just start blabbering and talking about stuff and how cool you are and your features and benefits. And then your client is looking at you, but then they're not actually there anymore because they're thinking about what they want to get for lunch, right? So you don't want to do that. This is the time to start asking questions and really try and withhold offering solutions to those questions until you have all the pieces to the puzzle. I've noticed myself do this before. Ask a question, they bring up a problem. I try and solve it right there. Next question, I find out, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spent so much time answering this problem because I didn't have all the pieces to the puzzle. And now I'm realizing that solution that I just offered doesn't work. So makes you feel kind of foolish, I guess, is the only word that I can think of. So anyway, you guys know, or most of you guys know Brett. Brett's my boss. He's an amazing mentor and an amazing ninja. When I shadow him in consultations, he does something where he will ask one question, just one initial question, and that question might be, what is most important to you in your life? Just ask that to the client. And the client will usually respond with something kind of short. Not that they're being dishonest, but it's normally just short. And then Brett will do this one thing. He will lean back in his chair and then he'll say, interesting. Tell me more about that. And the next, they just unfold another layer. They get done talking, Brett goes, that's really interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that. They freaking go into a whole nother thing. Next thing you know the names of all their pets, their family members, what's going on, who, family drama, everything, right? And not that you want to get sidetracked in meetings with people, right? You want to keep focused on the goal. But by doing that, he just uncovers all the way down to what the person truly cares about. And then he knows what solutions he actually needs to offer. So I've loved being able to see that. And that's kind of where the gathering information is so important. So solution, create potential solutions. Once you've gathered that information, start offering your solutions. The key is to have your solutions be clear and instill confidence. That will help your client do their job of making decisions. And that will eliminate a lot of the, we'll think about it and we'll get back to you type of responses to things. Obviously, some people do need to actually think about it, but most of the time, if your solutions are clear and create confidence for them, they should be able to make a decision. And then lastly is the proposal, where once you've provided those solutions, you need to detach yourself from the outcome. This has been something that, again, a lot of things, it's crazy how much I feel that I draw from this, that if I attach myself to the outcome, it actually lowers my power, because then that shows people like, oh, he really wants a yes right here. And if you have that, then that just puts pressure on them. And when people feel pressure, they clam up and are like, no, I'm not, we're not doing anything. I'm not saying anything. So you can go about the proposal in the right way by having the correct body language, your posture, your gestures, the tone of your voice, not talking so much. So when you ask a question, just talk. Don't fill the silence. Don't reiterate yourself 10 times. Again, it's something that sometimes I tend to do. Just stop talking and let them internalize that and then answer the question. If you notice that people are hesitant or that they can't seem to make a decision, then it's probably because you missed some piece of pain or pleasure information in step 2, and you need to circle back to it and try it again and try and figure out what's going on. So anyways, thank you for bearing with me while I seriously sat and talked to you guys, but I hope that that was at least good information to help educate on what the book is about, to give you a little bit of an idea without having to actually read the book, even though I think you should still read it. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful, and now we can just chat about it. The part that I was actually looking forward to is getting to talk and hear what you guys think and questions that you have for one another and questions that I have for you guys. So I'll go ahead and stop this really quick.